Okay, gang, Dr. M here. This is a quick video to help you through writing the Mouse Procedures Lab. First of all, I want to remind you that one of the best sources for information is right here in the Open Space Behavior Lab itself. There's a lot of good information here on page OSB 10, as well as throughout the rest of the lab report. So make sure you take advantage of that, and also consult the lab report guidelines, the LRG part, both of which can be found in Canvas. Okay, the first thing to do is to come up with a basic outline. You'll notice in the guidelines for writing lab reports that all sections need to have a header, and you are only writing the procedures and the literature cited at this point. So let me put in those two headers, and well, let me start with the basics. Let's put some basic information on it. This would be the Mouse Procedures Lab Report or something similar. You probably want to put your name on it. Maybe put your class in there. And it's nice sometimes for your instructor to put what time or what section it is. And usually the time is easier than the numbers to keep track of. So Mondays 2 to 5. Okay, something like that. I'm going to save this at this point. And when you save a file, it's good practice to save it with a good name. Okay, so I am going to put this particular one, let's see, I'm going to drop it right in here, and I'm going to call it, well, Mouse Procedures Lab Report. That's really kind of useless to your instructor because they're going to be looking at maybe 15, 20, 30 of these things. So what you should do is say something like Mouse, well, I'm old-fashioned, I like to put an underscore there. Mouse Procedures, and then I would give my last name, assuming there's no one else in the class with the same name, okay? And I might want to put the date in there. And this is a new recording, so 1/25/24. Okay, so you can keep track of which version you're looking at. But having your name and the name of what it is in the file name is very helpful. So I go ahead and save that, and now I type in my procedures and give some space, literature cited. These are the two sections you're going to be doing, and you might want to bold them just to set them off a little bit from the rest of the text. Now, let's consider the procedures. There's a number of things that need to go in here. In class, I usually suggest that you start with maybe the mice, then go on to the arena, and then talk about the experiments. So the first part, and just to make an outline here, mice, arena, and then procedure 1, because we did 2 experiments, procedure 2, and then data analysis. Okay, I'm not actually going to leave these in here. I'm just putting them there to remind me what I'm going to do. Okay, then I get to the procedures here, and I want to start off, remember we're going to be writing in the third person. We're going to be using the passive voice, and we're going to be using the past tense. So we're going to be saying what was done. Okay, not mentioning too much about who did it. So I would suggest about the mice, you say the basics. You say something like, the mice were obtained from a local pet store. I'm obviously not going to write the lab report for you. That there were 3 white mice, although your mice might not have been wet. How they were housed in a standard laboratory cage. They provided with food and water, and they were returned to the pet store when you were done. And once you get that in there, Just get rid of this, and then this thing is going to be a paragraph. And then you talk about the arena. Okay, I would start from the bottom up. I would talk about the arena was supported on a crate. I would give the dimensions of the crate. On top of the crate was placed a plywood board. I would give its dimensions, 80 centimeters square. And you could even go right here with a superscript square. And notice, this is something I'm going to hound you guys on. Don't just give me 20 centimeters square, put a little hat in there. We have computers now. And we can go in here. This is a little bit compressed here. And oh, no, right there it is. And you can do that. Okay, right there, superscript. 80 centimeters squared, painted white, black grid. And a couple ways you can describe the black grid. It could be 8x8 grid. It could be a grid of 64 squares. And you might say there are 10 centimeters on a side, although if you say how many there are and you know it's 80 centimeters squared and they're square grid, somebody could figure that out. But you want to be a little bit specific. It was covered with plexiglass to facilitate cleaning. And had walls, and they were made of core board, and the core board was, I believe, 6 millimeters thick, and you want to put how high it is. That's a critical thing. They were held on with brackets and Velcro, and some of you use masking tape as well to seal any gaps. And then we get to the tricky part. You need to talk about the how the arena was labeled and what it in terms of the different square types. There's 2 ways you could do this. You could type it out and say the ring of squares closest to the walls was labeled A, the next ring in was labeled B, and so forth. That's labeled. That's maybe not the best way to do it, but there are a couple ways to do it. Thought I misspelled that. And no, that's not quite right. So anyway, I'm just going to leave it like that. But describe how it was laid out. That can get a little bit wordy, and you can trip up over yourself. The other way that you could do it is you could come into here, and you could come up right to there, and I'm going to use my clipping tool down here, and I am going to, whoops, I want to make a clip. I want to add one, and I'm going to highlight figure 1. I'm not going to highlight that lower part. Okay, and I'm going to bring this back up. I'm going to copy it and paste it right into my document, click on it, and I might want to do it like this, tight, and then just drag it up over here. And I would say something like the squares were designated according to figure 1. You have to refer that figure in there. Now figure 1, it's already labeled, but you have to say what these different things were. And so what I'm actually going to do right here, a little trick, is I'm going to insert a table of just one cell. I'm going to come up here. It's not going to let me do it. I'm going to cut that. Click in there. I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to shrink this down a bit. Come in here, go after it, and right down below it, I would say like A equals edge. Oops, that one equals A equals edge squares. B equals blah, 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 and do that. And then I could just take this thing again and drag it over to where I want it so that the text kind of goes around it. Okay, and while we're in here, I'll just point out that the measurements are right here. I had you take them at the end of lab, but that's where it is. And let's see there. Yeah, there's core board. I spelled it right. So anyway, there's what you would be talking about. So once you've described all of that, then you can get rid of arena. Oops, you can get rid of arena here and go on to procedure 1. Okay, procedure 1 was what you did to test the first hypothesis. So here you would do something along the lines of, in order to test the hypothesis that mice prefer walls to open spaces, the following procedure was used. Oh, I forgot something very important. You need, on this, you need to put your source. Oops, come on. And then you would put like an in-text citation. Spilatro, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then you would go on with these. Whoops, that's not Spilatro. Worked with the guy for 35 years. You'd think I could spell his name. Yeah. Spilatro. Okay. So in order to test the hypothesis, mice prefer walls to open spaces, the following procedure is used, and then you go on to describe it. A mouse was taken from the cage and placed on the placed in the arena. Well, first you'd say the arena was cleaned using window cleaner or whatever. Then a mouse was taken from the community cage and placed in the arena where the star is indicated, or wherever you actually put it down when you were doing your experiment. The mouse was observed for 6 minutes. Every 15 seconds, the position of the mouse was recorded. You should have a rule in there for what you did if the mouse was between squares. And then at the end of that time, the mouse was removed from the arena. So again, all the measurements are right here for you to use. Now, one of the things you want to be careful about is as you're going through the descriptions, note that you should not be referring to what all the different people did. I don't want to see anything about the mouse handler, about the arena manager, or any of that. Okay, that was for you when you were doing this. Somebody else doing the experiment is not going to need that. So again, procedure 1, in order to test the hypothesis, the mouse was placed on the graph and observed for 6 minutes, blah, blah, blah. At the end of 6 minutes, it was removed and placed in a separate cage. Okay, this procedure was repeated with the arena was cleaned, and then this procedure was repeated with the next 2 mice. That's all you need to say. Okay, then you've got your second procedure. Now, each group did a different second experiment. You had different hypotheses. So now you'd say, in order to test the hypothesis that mice prefer walls to edges, or whatever you did, the procedures above were followed. However, the arena was modified by removing the walls, by placing walls over the 4 center squares, and then you'd have to describe those walls, by placing an object in the middle on the D squares. Again, you'd have to identify that and go through those different things. Whatever you did that was different, you would just say that. And again, the same procedures were used with the same 3 mice. End of story. That's all you need to do. Okay, we get down to, after that, the part that everybody forgets is the data analysis. Okay, there were several different analyses that we did. Okay, the most basic one was that you calculate the average time in percent that the mice spent in each square type. So that was where you divided the number of times the mouse was in each square type by 72 and multiplied by 100 to get that percent time. So you need to spell that out. Don't worry about the class averages, but you calculate the average time for both experiments. And then don't worry about graphing the class averages. Just say the data were then graphed using Microsoft Excel. And that's pretty much it for the procedures. It's really not that long. You got a paragraph about the mice, a paragraph about the arena, a paragraph about the first procedure, a short paragraph about the second one, and a paragraph about the data analysis. Double spaced, you know, it's not going to be a really huge thing. Maybe you have a picture here, maybe you don't. Literature cited, that's where you cite the lab manual. Okay, up here, Spilatro, Spilatro 2024, whatever, you need to look up the exact way to do that. But that is what we'd call an in-text citation. Down here, we're giving that whole reference. And that's where you put the author's name, the year, the title, etc. And all that information can be found in various parts in the lab manual itself, or in the lab report guidelines at the end. Okay, so again, some hints and some things. I'm going to be looking for these things right here. Okay, don't worry about the length. I don't count that as long as you got the stuff that I was looking for here. The final paper, it doesn't have to be submitted to Turnitin.com, right? It is submitted to Canvas. Again, write in paragraph form, not bullet points. Tell what was done. Don't tell me what to do. Okay, past tense, passive voice. No group members, mouse handlers, any of that stuff. Describe the arena completely, including the measurements. Make sure that you're clear. I didn't cover this. Make sure you're clear that when you talk about the letters on the floor, that the letters were not actually written there. That's just how they were designated. It was, those letters were not actually on the floor. That could affect the mouse's behavior. Okay. And again, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but be sure to cite your sources. So when you got that done, you cleaned up, double check where you have any misspellings or where something's getting flagged. It probably wants a period there, that kind of stuff. White, black, yeah, core. So it didn't know how to spell core board. So, make sure you clean up all those kinds of things. You want to get these things done early, let them sit for a couple days, look at it again. Go to the writing center perhaps. Schedule your time before you need to actually have this thing turned in. And then when you got it all ready to go, file, save it, and then file, save as Adobe PDF. Save it as a PDF. That's what you submit to Canvas. Okay? So that is pretty much it.